Thank you for choosing to listen to On Air with Chai and supporting our cause. Being a nonprofit organization, we rely on the support from our community to help keep our programs running and allow us to continually service our families while offering incredible experiences, such as family vacations after treatments, trips to Edmonton Mall, home-cooked meals, big sibling programs, day camp and sleepover camp, and many, many more. If you enjoy our stories and you're thinking of making a charitable donation, think of Chai Lifeline Canada and the children you would be supporting. You can visit us at chailifelinecanada.org.
It was actually the ophthalmologist who diagnosed it. It was a young med student. I'm never going to forget. He wasn't even a resident yet. He was a young med student who was just in the ER, and he was doing the intake and analyzing, and he looked in her eyes. He's like, her eyes seem a bit strange. Since we're going to admit you anyway, let's have you seen by ophthalmology. And it was so between that med student and the ophthalmologist, they were the ones who discovered her primary diagnosis of Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome, which, as I said, is very rare. It's 1 in a million. Nobody's heard of it. No doctor knows about it. So basically, I became the expert on this condition.
Welcome to On Air with Chai, a podcast that inspires, brings hope, shows resilience, and strength. Imagine being told your child of 6 months has been diagnosed with a very rare condition, so rare that only 1 in a million children get it. What would you do? How would you feel? Add to that, nobody really knows anything about the condition your child has because of how rare it is, meaning you're limited on your resources that you can find for research. Over time though, you do manage to actually find support groups online, and they do help you with some of the information you need, but still not enough. And it still makes you more of an expert than the doctors and those people who try to help you. Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome is the condition. Maya Sinclair was diagnosed with it at 6 months, and Jana Popliger, her mom, is the one who became that expert. 13 years later, Maya has written 2 books and has had a documentary made of her. The inspiration and positivity that they both share is very invigorating as well as contagious. Enjoy this incredible story. The episode of the podcast is sponsored by Miriam Steinberg in the merit of good health for Maya, Jana, Aaron, and Devasha, and in honor of the yahrzeit of Liba Bas Avraham and Yaakov ben Menachem Mendel. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Air with Chai. You know me, Bryan Strasberg, and of course I'm joined with my trusty sidekick, co-host, Executive Director of Chai Lifeline Canada, Morty Rothman. How you doing?
Hello, thank you for having me once again.
Always. And today our special guests are Jana Popliger and Maya Sinclair. Maya was diagnosed with Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome, and we're going to hear about her story with that, and I guess everything that you guys went through. And I believe she does something now as well on the side of it with books that we can get into later on with the conversation, but we definitely want to hear about everything. So if we can we start from the beginning of the story?
Absolutely. You don't know the beginning? I know the beginning. Okay, so Maya's too young to remember the beginning of the story, but basically, when she was born, she was a very challenging baby, and she wasn't meeting her milestones, or she would meet them and then she would regress, and she wasn't growing properly, and she was losing weight. It was one thing after another with her. And finally, our pediatrician sent us to the hospital and was like, let them figure this out. And she was about 6 months old at the time, and she was diagnosed with this very, very rare 1 in a million condition called Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome. It was actually the ophthalmologist who diagnosed it. It was a young med student. I'm never going to forget. He wasn't even a resident yet. He was a young med student who was just in the ER, and he was doing the intake and analyzing, and he looked in her eyes. He's like, her eyes seem a bit strange. Since we're going to admit you anyway, let's have you seen by ophthalmology. And it was so between that med student and the ophthalmologist, they were the ones who discovered her primary diagnosis of Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome, which, as I said, is very rare. It's 1 in a million.
Wow.
Nobody's heard of it. No doctor knows about it. So basically, I became the expert on this condition.
So that's so interesting to me because, oftentimes people are like hesitant to go to, let's say, a teaching hospital on the weekend because they know they're going to get, they're going to get a resident. They're not necessarily going to get the actual doctors. And in your case, that actually turned out to be a bit of a blessing in disguise because
He wasn't even a resident. He was literally a student.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
But then I like what you said. Now you've become the expert, and so can you elaborate on that? Because so often I think we're thrown into situations and we don't even necessarily take the time to really understand that for ourselves, and we kind of just either make a decision quickly, or even perhaps we don't even necessarily we don't take things into our own hands. And it sounds like that's very much the opposite of what you've done.
So, I mean, look, there is no, I guess the genetics department, they gave me a little bit of information on the condition, and the eye doctor gave me a little bit. But I mean, when a condition is 1 in a million, you have to realize that the eye doctor sees maybe one of these cases like every 5 years or so. He doesn't have a lot of, it's not like he has a whole group of patients with this condition. So I really had to quickly learn all there was to know. And thankfully, I have a science background. So I'm thinking that really helped me, because I went on the internet, I went into medical journals just to try to understand, what am I going to be faced with? I mean, I'm the one who has to advocate for my daughter. Nobody else is going to know what to do. I had to go back to the pediatrician and explain to them, this is what's wrong with her, and this is what we're going to be facing. And there were so many unknowns. We didn't know if she was going to be able to walk, if she was going to be able to talk. We didn't know. And here she is, walking, running, dancing, talking, writing, doing all of these amazing things that really nobody knew that what would happen. She went through a lot of therapies, physio, occupational therapy, speech therapy, weekly, from the time she was probably 7 months old till the time she was 5. And then they sort of decreased a bit, and now they've increased again in frequency.
That's truly remarkable. And I guess receiving a diagnosis like that, and then just having all the unknown, because you number one, not a lot of people know about this condition, and that's number one. But number two, I guess once you started to do the research and you go down that rabbit hole and you start to hear, the different possibilities of what could be.
Yeah.
How do you, as a mother, how did you cope with that?
So it's interesting. I don't know if this is going to sound mean or make me sound like a crazy, terrible mom, but my actual reaction was, we were sitting in the doctor's office, and the doctor said to the ophthalmologist, again, he was the one who officially diagnosed this, because it does affect her eyes and her vision, and we can talk about that afterwards. And he said, she has Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome. And your heart just stops. You're like, oh my God, what is this? And I said to him, is it fatal? He said, no. I said, okay, now I can listen to anything else you're going to say, because that was my biggest fear. So he's like, it's not fatal. I said, okay, good. Now I can hear. But I have to tell you, and this is the part that sort of was a very difficult stage for me, I guess, in this process, is it was as if God had handed me a different child. It was like the kid I knew up until that minute, that very second, was a completely different kid. And now I have this new kid going forward. It was so weird. Even when I look at pictures of her when she was 3 months, 4 months old, I look at her and I'm like, that's not like, that wasn't the real Maya. Like now I have this real Maya. And what do I do with this? It's like I have a whole new kid because everything that I thought about her was now going to be different. And now we had to move forward with that.
You know, and I can say that that is something that I think parents across the board struggle with. Whether it's, you know, and not to minimize at all Maya's condition, but even a child with ADHD, you have a certain expectation of your child is going to live a certain way and have a certain kind of, you know, become, you know, more scholastic or a professional. And, you know, and of course people with ADHD can do that. But they have to learn, they have to be, you know, it's a little different. And I think, you know, for parents in general, having to kind of rethink what your vision was for your child, and then it changes.
Yeah.
And there's so many reasons why that can change.
And I think it not only changed, but there was this huge fear of the unknown. It's not like something like ADHD, which also affects us in an entirely different way, but something like ADHD or autism, or there's so many people with this condition. There's so many parents out there who have to deal with this. There's books, there's this. I have news for you. There's no one out there on her condition. Right. Like there's no one. And so like, there's no one you could really talk to about it. But thank God for social media.
So isolated.
It's lonely. It's got to be lonely now because
it's very lonely. And again, I guess given my science background, I had to be very careful with the information I was getting, because I didn't want to get like the information that I was trying to learn had to have been like well-founded and scientifically based. Like I didn't want to hear like that, like ice cream cures this. Like I needed it to be, you know what I'm saying? Like I needed it to have legs. And I remember one day I was on Facebook and I typed in Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome, and I found actually like a group of people who have this. And I have to say at the beginning, it was sort of like my only support system, because here were these random people from around the world that had either themselves or their kids or their husbands or their wives that had this condition. So I was able to sort of read and interact with people who were living this. And I sort of ended up becoming a bit of an expert in that group too, because I had to learn.
It's important. It helps you get through those kinds of incidences.
I had to learn. I had to become the expert. Every time I would go to a new doctor, I would have to explain to them what she has. They don't know.
They probably don't even know what it is in the car.
Right. So like, yeah.
They can't even pronounce it.
And so you know, I think that speaks to two things. You know, in any really tough situation, I think it speaks to, you know, take the time to really learn and research and understand, and don't just take, you know, a weak approach to something. You got to find, you know, approaches that have teeth, that have legs. But then it also seems like you really went straight for, you know, finding yourself a community and having a community of people who understand what you're going through. Are, you know, they might not have been as expert as you, but I'm sure you must have found solace in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still to this day, I guess, became like personal friends, if you know what I'm saying, more than just in that group. Like they become like Facebook friends of mine, and we're still in touch. And one of them is a really, really sweet girl, well, woman, I guess, from, she lives in Louisiana.
Yeah. Oh.
And she offered, when Maya was going through some really hard stuff, she got in touch with Maya and said, ask me anything you want. And she gave her a few helpful tips about dealing with vision loss, which unfortunately Maya is experiencing severely. Yeah, I mean, they've just been so helpful and supportive. I'm not very active in the group anymore because it gets overwhelming, but whenever I feel like I need to ask real people, like real questions, I feel like I could go there.
So let me ask, for those who don't know what Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome is. What exactly is it? How does it affect the body? How does it affect the person?
Sure, and most people don't know at all what it is. So basically, it's a very, very, very rare genetic disorder. She's the first in our gene pool to get it. She's like a spontaneous mutation, they would call it. And it affects numerous aspects of her. It affected her development in terms of she was developmentally delayed in terms of a lot of things. It affects her growth, her joints, her muscles. It affects her teeth, her facial structures, and of course, the biggest impact is on vision. People with this condition have a high chance of developing pediatric glaucoma, which is different than adult glaucoma in that it occurs, it's very aggressive. Let me put it that way. It's very aggressive, needs to be treated in a different way. It doesn't respond in the same way as adult glaucoma does. And for the first 5 years, we were coasting. We had no obvious signs of glaucoma. We thought we were in the clear. And then all of a sudden, her eye pressure started increasing slowly and then kept increasing. She needed glasses, but that wasn't even for her glaucoma. That was just, she couldn't see close. She needed reading glasses. So it kept worsening, and finally it got to the point where it was like, oh, she has glaucoma, like her eye pressures are too high. Then our eye doctor started referring us to a different surgeon who we saw for a while, and she needed surgery when she was 8 years old. She had 2 surgeries, and then she had another 2 surgeries when she was 10, and then she had another 2 surgeries when she was 12. And all basically to try to not prevent the progression, because the glaucoma was already there. But perhaps the scariest is that things were under control. Let's say July, August of 2021. Yeah, it's hard for you to hear. July 2020. I'll tell it very quickly, okay? Okay. July 2021, we had seen the doctor. We go every 3 months, and things were stable. I mean, and when I say stable, this was already after 4 to 5 surgeries stable, but it was stable. And come the beginning of the school year, let's say August, September, she was complaining that she was having a harder time seeing. And I was like, okay, you need new glasses. Okay, fine. We were supposed to go see the doctor in November, but then it got delayed, and then it got delayed again. I was like, okay, you need new glasses. You need new glasses. Anyways, finally, our December appointment got changed to January. This is very unheard of with this doctor, but it did.
No.
And I said, hold on. And I emailed him. I'm very lucky to have this doctor. And I said, you know what? I said, she can't go back to school until you've seen her and given her a new prescription. She can't see. And I remember it was Christmas Eve and I was working. My mom took her to the hospital to the appointment, and her vision was so bad. It had deteriorated in the 3 months, but not only deteriorated, her optic nerve became so damaged that her vision was basically
Gone.
almost gone in one of her eyes. That's how quickly it progressed. So we had to have surgery very, very quickly, almost urgently. And it didn't repair it. Even now then she had to have another surgery. It took until April until she was able to get new glasses.
They helped a bit.
They helped a little bit, but there's still, the vision it's gone. It's gone, and she's really struggling now with school. Everything needs to be made larger, and we're going to be seen very shortly, hopefully, by the Association for the Blind to help us even more. So it's very difficult. She used to love doing puzzles and playing games and making these beaded bracelets that she would try to sell or donate or whatever. And it all stopped because she can't see small objects anymore and like details.
Focus on small things.
She can't focus on small things. She had to stop reading books because she couldn't read anymore. We got a nice surprise though. In September, our friends at not Chai Life, well, yes, Chai Lifeline, but Camp Simcha, which is her happy place, they surprised her and bought her a Kobo reader. So at least she'd be able to read and make the fonts and everything.
That's so awesome.
Bigger. I love it.
So let's,
I love it.
But I want to go back to that
Love
early stage. You can. And
yeah.
So how old was Maya when she was diagnosed? When you got that, when you finally got that diagnosis and it's like, now's my new kid.
6 months.
6 months. Okay. So she was an infant.
Yeah. She also has other diagnoses. That's the primary one. And yet almost every new diagnosis, I kept feeling like, oh, here's another kid again. Here's another kid again.
It's I can imagine you just having to continuously reevaluate your vision for her future and change that is something that must be extremely challenging.
Yeah. Meanwhile, she has surpassed all my expectations.
And I'm sure she's going to continue to.
She is. She's just like a warrior. She just overcomes things every day. And for as awesome as she is, she's the kindest person I know.
Well, so tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about Maya, and if you want to join in, you can join in if there's something you want to say. But tell us, you know, as a young woman dealing with some very tough stuff that many adults can't even deal with, you seem to be handling it with such grace and such positivity. And can you tell us a little bit, how do you do that? Where does that come from?
Speak to him.
If you're shy, that's okay too. You can tell your mom, you can whisper it to your mom, or you don't have to answer the question and we can cut this whole piece out. So you don't have to worry. The whole thing can get cut.
I just like, I don't know how to say it.
What do you want to say?
I just like go about every day.
She just gets through it.
Just goes through it.
She just goes through it. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of tears, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Well, from both of us, but especially from Maya. School, you know what? It's hard because physically she looks different than the other kids.
I think she's beautiful.
She's gorgeous, but you know, high school kids.
Yeah, I have two of them.
So aside from her size, she's I know people can't see what she looks like, but she's 13 and she's probably the size of about an 8 to 9 year old. And she's very self-conscious of it. And kids are.
No, I'm still the size of an 8 and 9 year old. It's okay. And I'm 37.
And like because of all of her surgeries and everything, like her eyes, I mean, they don't look that different, but you could sort of see that there's something. You could sort of, she's self-conscious. She's a 13-year-old girl, and socially she has a hard time. Academically, I mean, she's pretty good at school, but everything takes more effort and it's longer, and because she has to spend that much more energy just reading, and she can't even write notes in class. She has to have someone help her do that. You don't even have a notebook?
I do.
Oh, and yeah, you have a notebook, but she has an integration aide with her who Maya has to basically, when it's a time for a test, she tells her what to write because she can't write.
Right.
So I know how to.
Yeah, she knows how to write, but
It's just hard for her to write. I
it's
understand.
too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah, and I have a 13-year-old daughter as well, and I will say that a lot of the things that you're describing are things that a lot of 13-year-old girls are going through at the same time, with body image issues and feeling uncomfortable and in their own skin and things of that. And
I find that's very true. And I sort of tell Maya, like, everyone's going through something. I feel like maybe it's that much harder for Maya because she's going through all of those things while dealing with all of these other medical stuff that other kids are probably not dealing with on this
And they wouldn't
scale.
understand, or
They don't understand.
Maya, you are truly an inspiration. It's incredible to see. And so I want to ask you about High Lifeline. Can you tell us a little bit about when you met High Lifeline and what that was like? And
I can start, and then Maya will happily fill in. Okay.
Sure.
So I knew someone who this actually all started with.
The episode of the podcast is sponsored by Miriam Steinberg in the merit of good health for Maya, Jana, Aaron, and Devasha, and in honor of the yahrzeit of Liba Bas Avraham and Yaakov ben Menachem Mendel.
Camp Simcha. And Maya, some of her friends were talking about that they were going to overnight camps, and she thought it was interesting, but this is a kid who didn't even really have any friends and certainly wasn't going away to any sleepaway camps when she would barely leave my side. And I knew of a friend of mine whose daughter went to Camp Simcha, and I sort of, she went to the Camp Simcha, not Camp Simcha Special. What Maya goes to Simcha Special, obviously. And I don't know, I just came across it one day, and when I went to research it, I was like, oh, you don't have to have cancer to go to this camp. You can it just sort of seemed to fit us. And so I looked into it, and I called or I emailed the Camp Simcha number. They said, are you affiliated with High Lifeline? I'm like, I don't even know what that is. They said, you have to call someone from the Montreal office. And I don't remember if I called or if they said they were going to find someone to call me, but honestly, within 5 minutes, I was talking to somebody from the High Lifeline office in Montreal.
Awesome.
And then the next day,
They're doing their
they're
job.
doing their job. And she was just so nice. The girl I spoke to, it was Ricky, who I just found out got married tonight.
Yeah.
So Ricky, if you're listening, mazel tov. Okay. And she was just so lovely, and she was like, I really want to meet you guys, and I want you to come to the High Lifeline Center. But I had actually just had surgery, and I said, I can't go anywhere right now. And she's like, okay, I'll come to you. And she came over the next day and brought toys and games and everything for Maya and my older daughter, Erin. And she started talking about Camp Simcha and High Lifeline and all the services. And I was like, how much does this cost? She's like, nothing. I was like, what? I couldn't believe that she was offering me all these lovely things and activities and camp. And it was just, I was just floored by this. And they arranged.
And so how old was Maya
she was
again?
probably about 7 years old or so.
Oh wow! So that's really young.
So and that's the thing. This occurred. This conversation with Ricky happened in I would say February, March, let's say of that year, and she was 7.5. So she was about to turn 8 in August, and they told me camp starts at 8 years old. But Ricky tried very hard, because basically she was 2 weeks shy of going to camp, in terms of the cutoff for her age. And they said, okay, we'll take her. She's going to go to camp. And she was so excited. Mom was a nervous wreck. She was so
I can only
excited. And I've
imagine.
only heard good things about this place. And I spoke to my friend. She was like, no, you don't understand. She's going to be in the best hands. I'm like, but nobody, I've never left her. And she's this and I'm that. And she's this and I'm that. I can tell you this camp takes better care of. I'm more relaxed when she's at camp than when she's with me. They're so good at camp. They take the best care of her.
You can't see how she just looked at you.
They take the best care of her at camp, and it's incredible. So
So Maya, how many times have you been to camp?
7.5, 8.5,
20, hold on, 20.
9.5, 12.5.
So I think 4 years because of COVID.
Or
We had to have like a little
wow,
COVID
okay.
hiatus, you know?
What's your favorite thing to do at
Yeah.
camp?
Yeah, we want to hear. What's your favorite camp?
Everything.
Oh, I do something generally everything. Crap.
Talk louder. They want to hear. Talk louder.
I like zip lining, candle making, arts and crafts.
The helicopter.
Their night activities are fun.
Other concerts.
No, not the concert.
Oh, the night activities.
Like, yeah,
Okay.
I don't like concerts.
Right.
So I think it's incredible when you think about the parents in general. Like I know sending my own children, I struggled to send them away at 9 for a sleepaway camp, and
Oh,
so
it
young
was a
and
struggle.
sending
It was
No.
a struggle. For me?
Yeah.
Oh, but literally the minute, first of all, I don't know if you've ever been to Camp Simcha.
I am lucky enough to go about once a year. I get to go visit, and it's just the most.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever been there on day one.
They ran to my car.
No,
Okay.
I've never been on
I've
day one.
seen videos. Forget the videos. It is one of the most incredible experiences ever. The love, the energy, the excitement that happens when you pull up to that gate with your kid. It's not even normal. They know your kid before you've even gotten to camp. And they welcome these kids. They're cheering their names. Each kid gets their own welcome. And one year I brought my parents with, and they had seen videos and pictures. It's mind-blowing. You have to be there. And this past year, long story, but my best friend came with me to drop Maya off at camp, and she was just, you have to experience it. It's like goosebumps. It's so crazy how beautiful, it's so emotional, it's so happy, it's so full of love. You don't even want to leave camp, honestly. It's just the best, happiest place. It's beautiful. Yeah, Maya wants to tell you about how they greet you.
So basically, like you're driving like down what's it called, the street?
The road?
Yeah, the road, and you're excited because it's camp. And then like you get to
The gates?
No, not the gate. Like a bit before the gate, and you hear people screaming their heads off. And then the first year I went, I was like excited, and I was mostly sad that I was like nervous because I don't want to leave you. And then I got there, and I was in like the car seat.
Yeah, she was the first year she was like in a car seat, and they come and they oh, she's talking.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
the
The 5-point harness,
Yeah. And they like banged on your door to tell you to unlock the door. And then they ran. And then my counselor, she runs over the yard, took me out, and she was like partying and like.
Yeah, they take your kid out of the car.
It sounds
They're
like
so excited to
Frosh
see
Week.
you. They just like rip your kid out of the car. The bags were out of the car before I like even. I was was like, where'd the bags go? They just whisk everything away. There's nothing.
So this was your first mom first time this happened. Were you a little bit like
I have to tell you,
a little bit nervous? Like, what's happening now? They're just
want
like
to tell you,
attacking my
leading up
car.
to this, actually, I don't know if you remember this, Mordechai. I wrote a blog about this, but then there was like another part that maybe you didn't know. So for leading up to camp, like I was such a nervous wreck. I had every worst case scenario in my head playing out, like
What?
for sure. And I was like, oh my God, I'm always looking for like a sign that everything's going to be okay. And we pull up to the gate and yeah, there's like, they're jumping on my car and they're like banging on the windows. They're grabbing her out of the car. Like this is all happening within a microsecond. And the head counselor, and I remember emailing the director of the camp, telling them this beautiful story that happened. And I said, I leave her. They came and they took her away. They were dancing her and cheering for her and blah, blah. And this counselor comes out who keep in mind, I have no clue who anybody is. I don't even know how they even knew that this was Maya. And she comes to me and says, my name is Shandel, and I promise I'm going to take very good care of your daughter. And I said, excuse me, what did you say your name was? She's like, Shandel, and I'm going to take care of your daughter. And I literally froze. And I said, and at that moment, I completely relaxed. Why? I had never met Shandel, didn't even hear the name Shandel. I've heard of Rivka, I've heard of Rifki, I've heard of like this, but I had never heard of Shandel. And this sweet girl, Shandel, says to me, I'm going to take care of Maya. And I froze. And at that minute, I knew that I could leave her at camp. Because you see, my grandmother's name was Shandel. And Shandel and Maya share a birthday, August 15th. They were born on the same birthday.
Wow.
And as soon as my grandmother's my guardian angel. She had passed away maybe in 2013. So 3 or 4 years prior to our first year at camp. On the same day that camp started. And when she said, right? And when she said, my name is Shandel, and it's not such a common name. You don't hear that so often.
Yeah,
sound like Rivka. There's so many of those. But you don't hear the name Shandel very often. And my grandmother was Shirley, but her Hebrew name was Shandel. When she said that, I was like, that's my sign. That's my sign that everything's going to be okay. And I was able to breathe for the first time in about a month. And I knew everything was going to be okay at that point.
Wow. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely incredible.
Okay, so camp sounds amazing.
Camp is amazing.
And so can you tell us, I understand that there's not only does Maya, wow us every day with the incredible things that she's accomplishing, but I'm curious about, I heard something about some books that she's writing or written, and can you tell us a little bit about the origins of that and where that came from and
how it began?
Oh,
Where can we find these books?
Yep.
Amazon.
You can find them on Amazon.
Maybe chapters.
We're hoping to get them into chapters one day. Can I just go back a second? I just want to say one other thing about Pi Lifeline before we talk about that. I want to say one of Maya's most, how do I say, aside from like the evenings and the entertainments and the activities, I think one thing that Maya has benefited from the most is the Big Sister program.
Yeah.
And we have had incredible big sisters along the way, and we lose them because they get married, but we go to their weddings. And it's so sad. It's like they stay with us for a little bit and then they move on. It's like devastating to me, but the sweetest girls, they come every week, and they hang out with Maya, and we've had Julia, we've had Leah, we've had Chevi, we've had all of Chevi's family, and now we have Noah, and it's just been the most positive. Yeah, we've had a few, but those are, and Noah. And I tell these girls, these are like my bonus daughters. I love them. They're so sweet. They're so good. They're incredible.
It's definitely
people.
one of our It's definitely one of our favorite programs that we run.
We love it.
Yeah.
I know maybe some kids don't benefit from it as much, but it's been an absolute incredible thing for Maya. They came to visit her in the hospital. They're all amazing. They were all invited to her bat mitzvah.
Yeah, the Big Brother Sister program is
Incredible.
Yeah, it's something that, one thing that I always say though is like, yes, your daughter Maya certainly benefited from it, but all of the volunteers who get to know Maya and see her strength and are inspired by her, I think often don't realize they think that they're getting involved to volunteer with High Lifeline, but I think your life gets changed when you build a relationship with somebody as strong as Maya, and I think that's a hugely positive part of the Big Brother and Sister program that sometimes
Her camp counselors as well.
Yeah.
We're still in touch with the camp counselors and nurses and everyone who took care of her. Maya speaks to them regularly. They call and check in on me. I mean, they're so awesome.
that's amazing. I'm so proud of that. So
We got off track a little bit. These books. I want to
Let's go back to the
these
books.
these
I
stories.
didn't want to forget to mention that big sister program. It's incredible. Okay. Talk about your books.
Like, which one?
well,
So Maya, what are your books called?
Operation Nine Shining Star.
And how many books do you have?
2.
We're working on a third.
What's
No.
why not?
looking like a true author.
I'm done at 2, and that's the end of it.
We actually started book
No,
3.
I have to write a story for English.
Okay.
Book 3 is coming.
So.
Okay. Book 3 is in the work.
So I'm more curious. What was the inspiration? What made you decide to write a book?
Well, my first book is called Operation Eye, and I had eye surgery, and I was scared, and then I already liked blogging because of her.
Her meaning me.
Is it Mom?
Who's her?
Yes.
Mom.
And I wanted to write a book about it. Like how
It's
I
therapeutic.
how I was
Absolutely, it is.
scared and stuff, like how I was scared and like what everyone did to like try and distract me. And then like I wrote it on like paper that I like cut, and then like I stapled it at the top, and I thought it was so cool how I had a stapled paper together. And then like you were like what's it called? The publisher.
No, there's a long way before that.
I wanted it published. Oh wait, hold up. Now I'm remembering.
Yes. Okay.
You entered me in like a book competition.
There was a writing competition, and I suggested that, hey, Maya, why don't you submit your story? And because the winners of this
Get their
competition
book
would get their stories published as part of, not individually, but it would be like a book of stories with all the winning stories in it. Okay. Anyway.
So a book of short stories.
Yeah,
And
basically.
then I got what's the word called?
You were a finalist.
Yeah, I was a finalist, and basically I didn't I got to go to like the final.
To the finals, but she didn't win.
Yeah, didn't win.
So that's okay. So
I was still pretty cool that I.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
And then
I'm gonna interject here. Okay. So then a friend of mine had told me about this organization in the States called Books That Heal. It's called Books That Heal, the organization, and that they publish books for kids who have medical issues. And I didn't. Anyways, I got in touch with the owner of the director, whatever he is, of this organization. And I wasn't sure if it was that they publish kids' stories or if they take the diagnosis and like write like a bit of a more of a like a not a documentary, like
an autobiography,
like a factual book about it. Anyways, and I said, well, before if you want to know a bit more about Maya, I'm just going to send you this book that she wrote 2 years ago. And I sent it to him. He's like, we're publishing this. We're publishing this as is. I love it. And it was so cute. It had like her original drawings and this, and we just made a few changes to it because now she was 2 years older. So we just we added a page that was just made it a little bit more deep, if you know what I mean. And he wanted to publish it right then and there. He's like, I'll just send it to me. I'll edit it. I'll turn it into more of a, in a more book format, if you know what I mean. And that's what happened. And when I was talking to him, I was telling him a story about the book that is now called Shining Star, about this experience that basically my older daughter, Erin, is a fantastically gifted, beautiful dancer who always takes part in dance competition. She's been dancing since she's 3 years old, and now she's like 18 and a half. And I said, yeah, I mean, basically we were at a competition one year and Maya saw a group of 6-year-olds on the stage and said, well, why can't I dance like them? And I knew she wouldn't be able to because it's very demanding and she doesn't have that stamina and that strength to be able to do it as part of her condition. And one of my fellow dance moms, I guess, said, well, why can't she go on stage? I said, how's she going to go on stage? Anyways, long story short is I emailed the director of the competition, suggesting that maybe we could create a category for kids who have physical and developmental challenges that would allow them to dance and compete in a way that they'd be able to. But, they have to be kids that can't take part in their regular competition thing. And bottom line is they wrote back to me the next day and said, yes, 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 let's do this. And so the Shining Star category was born. And in the first year, Maya was the only dancer. And as the years went on, there's now about 30 to 40 competitors in that category, all because of Maya.
It's you.
And I was telling his name is Michael, the guy who's in charge of this Books That Heal. He's like, you need to tell that story. You need to publish that story. I'm like, oh, we just wrote one book. I can't write another. He's like, I'm going to help you write this book. I have ideas of how it's going to go. He goes, and I'm going to hook you up with a professional illustrator who's going to illustrate your book for you. And so Shining Star was born. He literally only usually publishes
not one, but
2 books,
but
and he
2
usually only
books
publishes one. And he said to me, he's like, whatever else she's going to write, I'm publishing. And that's when we started with Shining Star. He hooked us up with this incredible illustrator. Her name is Stacy Lamb, and lots of back and forth, virtual backs and forths. And thank God for Zoom. And it was published. So she has 2 published books.
Operation Eye and Shining Star on Amazon by Maya Popliger. Look him up, buy him.
Not too many. I don't think I've met any 13.
It's under Maya Sinclair.
Sorry, Maya Sinclair. There you go. On Amazon.
I don't think I've met a 13-year-old published author.
And I want to just add about these books. So part of the things with Books That Heal, they publish everything at no cost to us. Maya makes 0 money on any of the books. All the proceeds for Operation Eye, the proceeds go to a local charity called Dr. Clown. These are therapeutic clowns that come and visit kids in hospitals and long-term settings. They also go to adult centers as well, but they're not dressed as clowns in that case. And these Dr. Clowns have played such an, no, this is book, have played such an instrumental part in Maya's development. She wouldn't do physio without the clowns present. Like I had to schedule the appointments on those days. They come to visit her in the hospitals. And I have to tell you, we met the clowns for the first time at 3 years old. My 13-year-old gets just as excited these days when they show up to her appointments. She loves them. They find her anywhere and everywhere that she is. And all the money from Operation I goes to them. And all of the money from Shining Star goes to all of those other amazing Shining Stars at Camp Simcha. It's our way of giving back to these amazing organizations that have played just such a huge role in our lives.
This is such a inspiring story. I mean, there's a lot going on here with Maya's health and everything. You becoming I guess the master of her syndromes and dealing with her health and everything. Then all of a sudden you're trailblazing a whole new department in dance, publishing books. Where's the movie? You have a movie.
So, you're getting tired. It's okay. So we're
going to be done in 5 minutes, Maya. Okay?
I haven't smiled this much in an interview. Like I heard this is like.
Thank you. So we actually do have a movie. Very funny that you mentioned this. So last year, Maya had her bat mitzvah, and we studied. Yeah, it was actually practically exactly a year ago. It was November 7th, and here we are, November 8th. And leading up to the bat mitzvah, our rabbi had this idea. It's Rabbi Mark Fishman in Montreal, who has since moved to Israel, but we're still very much in touch with him. He had this idea. He approached me maybe a year or so prior. It was 2020. It was pre-COVID. It was like February 2020. It was really pre-COVID. And he said, I have an idea and I want to know if you're okay with this. I said, if it's coming from you, I'm okay with it. What do you have in mind? So he said, I want to do a documentary on Maya. I think she's so inspiring and so interesting. I want to follow her overcoming her obstacles to becoming this bat mitzvah girl. And I said, okay, what do we need to do? Well, then everything got put on hold a bit because of COVID. But ultimately, we ended up having this movie, this documentary made. You could see it on YouTube. It's called Becoming Big. It was a 4-part documentary, basically talking about her challenges. It interviewed me. It interviewed my parents. It interviewed some of Maya's friends, school principals, and it was a really beautiful project to be a part of. And it was released about a year ago, like pretty much coincided with the bat mitzvah. Very well received, to the point that we had articles published about us. We've done a podcast for CJN, and ultimately we were approached by CJA in Montreal to take part in their Judaim month, which is like this Jewish, they're going to kill me. I can't remember what it stands for, but
Disability Awareness Month.
There we go. Something like that.
Jewish Disability and Inclusive Month.
There we go. That's what it stands for. And we did this whole armchair interview where we were interviewed by Mark Bergman. He's a local radio celebrity. And it was all done through Zoom, and we had quite a turnout, quite a virtual turnout. And that just led to more and more opportunities and more people talking about the movie. And I encourage and invite you to go and watch it. It's called Becoming Big. If you go on YouTube, you'll find it. There's 4 parts plus the movie trailer, and it's a beautiful film. And I'm so happy to be part of that project. And even to this day, I actually just was messaging with the rabbi the other day. He's like, tell me when we can work on a project together. I said, you come up with the idea, I'm part of it.
Do you sing or play an
Wow.
instrument?
It's interesting because I would say by now it's been in the thousands of people who've been touched seriously by illness. And, a lot of families, and I'm not putting anybody down because everybody copes with it in their own way and everybody handles it in their own way. And some people fall apart and that's okay. And some people rise up and that's okay. And it's truly incredible, both of you, for rising up, rising to the occasion, trailblazing, doing the incredible things that both of you continue to do on behalf of Maya's condition, on behalf of your own mental health, on behalf of helping the world and making the world a better place. It's truly inspiring. I'm in awe to have you both on our podcast. And I want to say, as we come to the end of our podcast, thank you very much.
Thank you both for your time. Maya, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an incredible honor and pleasure meeting you and speaking with you and hearing your incredible story and how much you love and enjoy camp. We will be speaking with the directors of Camp Simcha soon, and we will definitely be telling them about this and how much you guys love it and enjoyed it. This has been incredibly inspirational, and I hope everybody gets the positivity that you've pulled out of everything.
We try. We've been very blessed. We've been very blessed by, I feel like we've had a lot of opportunities that we never would have had Maya been not put on this path that we're on. Let's put it that way. She's had a lot of opportunities, like going to camp and just a lot of other special things. I mean, not many kids get books published, have a documentary made about them. And it's really, really quite beautiful. People are drawn to Maya, honestly. They're just absolutely drawn to her. And I'm very, very lucky to go on this ride along with her. I can tell you that. We have a beautiful community. And if anything, it just reminds me of how beautiful people could be, because we've seen angels. I promise. We've seen angels along the way. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for a lot of angels helping me. Well,
yeah, thank you for your gratitude, and thank you for an incredible interview. And
thank you.
I only look forward to being part of that journey for as many years as you'd like.
Absolutely. You're welcome to come along for this crazy ride.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Maya and Jana, for sharing your incredible story with us today. Becoming an expert in anything is no easy feat. Jana, you did an amazing job taking control of Maya's health and understanding her illness. With it being 1 in a million, you've paved the way for the next person who will be in your situation. With Maya writing and having books published, having a documentary made about her, to Jana pioneering an entirely new section to dance competitions, you're both incredible people that won't let adversity get in your way. Thank you again for all you shared and all you continue to share, and thank you to the listeners for choosing us to listen to. Until next time, and thank you to our sponsor. The episode of the podcast is sponsored by Miriam Steinberg in the merit of good health for Maya, Jana, Aaron, and Devasha, and in honor of the yahrzeit of Liba Bas Avraham and Yaakov ben Menachem Mendel. On Air Chai is a Chai Lifeline Canada project, produced by myself, Bryan Strasberg, hosted by myself and the Executive Director of Chai Lifeline Canada, Mordechai Rothman. Guests are booked by Orly Davis, and graphic design is done by Candace Alper. On Air Chai is edited by myself, and the music is provided by Music Unlimited at pixabay.com. To learn more about Chai Lifeline and how you can help us, please visit our website at chailifelinecanada.org. Don't forget to subscribe and give us that 5-star rating, and of course, share it with all your friends. Thank you for choosing to listen to On Air with Chai and supporting our cause. Being a nonprofit organization, we rely on the support from our community to help keep our programs running and allow us to continually service our families while offering incredible experiences, such as family vacations after treatments, trips to Edmonton Mall, home-cooked meals, big sibling programs, day camp and sleepover camp, and many, many more. If you enjoy our stories and you're thinking of making a charitable donation, think of Chai Lifeline Canada and the children you would be supporting. You can visit us at ChaiLifelineCanada.org.